So who are you?
I'm Don Tapscott.
And the bad thing about asking that question at the beginning of the interview, it gives no context of why I'm talking to you or what you've done with your life and all that fun stuff. I mean, you've written a couple of really interesting books, Wikinomics and the digital...
Well, most recently, Grown Up Digital.
Grown Up Digital, I'm sorry.
But those are my 12th and 13th books.
Whoa.
I wrote a book in 1981 about the internet, and my mother bought most of those. It was like a study in bad timing.
Wow.
Yeah,
you should re-release it.
Well, I should. It actually holds up pretty well. It argued that professionals and managers can use computers connected to networks. And back then, I was ridiculed, actually. Yeah. I collaborated with Douglas Engelbart and a whole bunch of great people who I learned so much from.
Yeah.
But it took 30 years for this to happen.
What are you seeing happen today? And what does business need to take away from what's going on right now?
Well, the big things that I'm working on are how the new web enables new institutions, and the combination of technology and a new generation that have grown up bathed in bits and for whom new models is just like the air. These two are bringing about some very profound change. And the current recession is not just a recession. We're at a punctuation point in human history that many of our institutions have sort of taken us forward to the point where they no longer can. And they're...
Give me some examples.
Well, you pick one. You know, pick an institution, a corporation. I mean, that's what Wikinomics was about. The traditional command and control, vertically integrated, insular corporation, exemplified by, say, auto company or a big bank, is no longer able to create wealth and advance society. Our systems for global cooperation are just not working. The nation state is the wrong size for the global economy. And we need new ways. We need sort of like a Bretton Woods 2.0. The media is collapsing. We're all in this New York Times death watch. How much longer can it service its debt? And newspapers, you know, are the canary in the mine shaft on that one. You've got, according to my research, 75% of television ads are not watched by young people. They cut them out by time shifting. Yep. And TV is like Muzak. It's ambient media for them. So that one's next. The university is based on this old model of pedagogy. You know, the lecture. I have knowledge, you don't. Get ready, here it comes. That's not the way young people learn. So the smartest kids don't go to lectures. Yeah. And when you have the cream of a crop of an entire generation boycotting the formal model of pedagogy, that's a storm warning for big changes. So I could go on. Science. How about the energy grid that's failing and is now destroying the planet? We're
burning too much coal, putting too much CO2 into the air.
Oh yeah, and this is, it's not just that we're going to run out of fossil fuels. We don't have time to run out of fossil fuels. You know, we need to reindustrialize the planet. You know, you were at Davos. Yeah. I remember Clinton saying that if we reduce fossil fuels by, CO2 emissions, carbon, by 80%, not 6% like Kyoto, 80% in the year 2050, it'll take 1,000 years for the planet to cool down. And in the meantime, you know, in the next couple of decades, there's like 1.5 billion people that will lose half of their water supply. So that's all the kind of bad news. The good news is that we have a new medium of human communications upon which we can build a new world and a whole new set of institutions that are sustainable and that can innovate, that can improve social development, and where we can possibly have a chance at achieving some kind of justice in the world. So this is a very exciting time.
You said something about, you call this the new web. And that's sort of the guiding principles behind Building 43, is we're trying to help businesses see that there's something new happening that they need to take advantage of. Yeah. What is the new web? How do you define it? You know, how do you at least recognize it's new versus a 1994 website?
Well, well, you said the magic word, website. I've actually tried to ban the term website in my company because it's such a .com sort of idea. I mean, the old web was, well, first of all, it was accessible through a PC tethered to a desktop. Now we have ubiquitous ambient computing. The physical world is becoming smart and interconnected. I have a friend in Toronto, everything in his house that has electrical power has an IP address, you know, and all this stuff talks to itself. He was saying, he was bragging that his fence talks to his sprinkler, and I said, well, why would you care? He says, well, if a burglar comes over the fence, the sprinkler is my first line of defense, you know. So, so this is ambient computing. The physical world is becoming smart. That's a big one. The new web is broadband. Remember dial-up. It's true multimedia, and the most important thing is it's enriched with services. The old web was based on HTML, and it was a platform for the presentation of content, which is why, you know, during the .com period, people talked about websites and eyeballs and stickiness and page views. Content is king. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the new web is based on XML and, you know, UDDI and a new lingua franca for distributed computing. It's not a platform for presentation. It's a platform for computation. You know, and you look at something like Wave that's just come out. I mean, these are services that are part of this global computer.
Yeah.
And every time we use a computer, we're programming it. We're all programming this computer. So that means that we can collaborate and we can self-organize.
Yeah.
So I could, if we had some PowerPoint here, you know, I could show you 50 charts that show the old HTML website, mtv.com, being eclipsed by the XML-based community. Yeah. You know, like YouTube or MySpace. So Opinions beats Consumer Reports, and Wikipedia beats Britannica, and on it goes.
Well, and last night Bing came out, Microsoft's new search engine, and I'm watching videos on Bing that I would have usually gone to YouTube to, but you can just mouse over and you can watch the video right on the search page.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, and an example of where websites are disappearing, right?
Yeah.
Where our content is spraying all over the place and being re-described or re-displayed in ways that we never imagined, right?
Well, and that's really the spirit of the thing. I mean, I'll just give you an example of the website versus the new web. The FBI has a 10 most wanted list, okay? And the old website way of doing that is you create a portal and you try and get all the people to come to your portal and look at the wanted list. Well, what they've done is they created a 10 most wanted widget, and it goes out there and it implants itself in cash registers in high security or high crime areas on the little screen there. And it's like taking the internet out and distributing it to the world as opposed to you come to my website.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more of that. Google is leading the trend there. I call it copy and paste programming, where you can copy, you go to code.google.com, you find a widget you like, you copy the code, you paste it in your WordPress template or whatever's next template, and it displays a little widget there. And my blog has a couple of widgets along the side that are just programmed by copy and paste, right?
Well, it's great. To extend your analogy, we're sort of getting into the copy and paste corporation, an institution.
Explain more.
Well, you have these highly modular, networked structures whereby we orchestrate capability differently. You know, the old model was you have this vertically integrated corporation that does everything from soup to nuts, and talent is inside. You know, you hear that expression, our most precious asset goes out in the elevator every night, right? Well, Procter & Gamble has 50% of all of their research comes from outside the company now. They're R&D. They don't even call it R&D. They call it C&D, connect and develop. So if they're looking for, I don't know, a molecule that'll take red wine off a shirt, they have 9,000 chemists inside their boundaries, and they now have close to 1 million outside that they can get to on the web. So they have these things that they call ideagoras. Actually, I call them that, but they're now using that language. But these are open markets for uniquely qualified minds. So you just sort of take that idea, then you paste it out there into the ideagora, and then sure enough, there's a retired chemist in Taipei or a grad student in San Francisco comes up with a molecule. P&G pays him a few $100,000, and they have a great new product. They've got like 24 product categories that are multi-billion-dollar businesses now. So we're moving into a much more modular kind of networked model of the enterprise, and in some ways parallels the technology.
Yeah. We're here at the Y-Pulse conference.
Yeah,
right?
Mashup, I think it's called.
The marketing mashup.
Yeah.
The Y-Pulse.
Yeah.
And it's all youth marketing.
Yeah.
You're giving the keynote in an hour or so.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What are you noticing with the younger generation?
Well,
people like my kid.
Well, we've talked about this. Yeah, well, you got a 15-year-old. Okay, so you know what's happening. And by the way, I find the people who have teenagers instantly get this. So if you want to really understand the new web, you should go get a kid and get them into their teens. Earlier. This is the first time in human history when young people are an authority about something really important. I was an authority on model trains when I was 11, and today Patrick is an authority on this digital revolution that's changing, business, commerce, government, every institution in society. So in the 60s, we had a generation gap, big differences between kids and parents. That doesn't exist so much today. Kids and parents get along pretty well. I mean, you've got a relationship with him. And, people look at your iPod and your kid's iPod, there's overlap. My parents didn't even like the Beatles. I started studying kids as a generation about 15 years ago when I noticed that my own kids were effortlessly able to use all this sophisticated technology. At first I thought they were prodigies, but then I noticed all their friends were like them, and that was a bad theory. So I started working with these 300 kids, and I wrote this book, Growing Up Digital, back in '97. And so flash forward 12 years, we got the new web, and these kids are not just growing up, they've kind of grown up using this stuff. So they're the biggest generation ever, and they have different brains. Their brains are different, and that's what my research found. I did a $4 million research study behind the new book, Grown Up Digital. And to make a long story short, how you spend your time after your DNA is the #1 variable determining what your brain is like. And if you're a baby boomer, when you were growing up, you spent 24 hours a week watching television.
Yeah.
And these are the baby boomers' kids. And they grew up, they watch a lot less TV, and they watch it differently. They come home and they turn on their computer, and there are 3 windows, and they've got 3 magazines opening, and they're listening to MP3 files and texting and a video game. They're doing their homework at the same time. But the TV's kind of going on in the background, and it's like music to them. And so this is a generation that actually thinks differently. Just something like multitasking. I probably have hundreds of people come to me and say, how can my kid get an A when they're doing all this stuff? They're not focused, they've got low attention span and everything. And my measure is if they're getting an A, then it kind of, the proof is in the pudding, that they're not actually multitasking. They have better active working memory, and they have better switching abilities. So they can, they can move between activities so fast it looks like they're doing 6 things at once. Personally, I have trouble listening to music and doing my email at the same time, because my synaptic connections don't enable me to do that. This is, it's called extended adolescence, age 8 to 18. This is this critical period when your brain is being built.
I totally believe it.
Yeah.
I have a 19-month-old. He knows already how to turn on an iPod, how to find his favorite app, and how to start it, and how to play a game. And he can't even speak English yet, right? So what's his generation going to be like in 20 years when they get into the workforce?
Yeah.
They're going to be way more adept than even my 15-year-old is.
No,
my 15-year-old didn't have that experience.
Well,
right?
he's part of the net generation, the baby boom echo. They're age 13 to 30. The eldest turned 31 this year. Your younger lad is it a boy?
Yeah.
He's a whole other thing. And it'll be really interesting to see these kids. Now, of course, kids need balance. And if they're playing video games 70 hours a week, that's a problem. But overall, this whole negative view, this stereotype that, the internet is dumbing out a generation. They're the dumbest generation. How the digital age stupefies young Americans and jeopardizes our future. It's a subtitle to that book. They're net addicted, glued to the screen, losing their soul. The internet is eating the neocortex of youth today. They don't give a damn. They're coddled. They mooch off their parents. They steal intellect. I just wrote a review of a book called Cyberbia that essentially says young people are criminals. You know, it's the equivalent of having a crowbar and going in, cracking open, a safe or something.
We did that in our gym. Come on, I mean, go back to the first computer clubs in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
We all had libraries of software. We all stole everybody's games.
Yeah.
In fact, the best video game producers came from the Valley, right? I went to high school with one of them, and he hand cracked all the games for all the other kids. You know, but that's how he got smart. And he understood what was going on at a low level.
And they view it differently. You know, in the research, this is actually a sidebar in Grown Up Digital. I asked these kids, do you steal music? And I didn't give them any kind of hints or anything. And the reactions were amazing. I mean, they range from, yeah, I do, and I feel a little weird about it, to yes, I do, and so does everybody else, and maybe the record industry will get its act together and have a business model that enables us to enjoy our birthright, which is music. And then you get kids who say, I have moral uncertainty about this question, but the truth of the matter is that my, whatever it is, 60 gig iPod does not fill itself up, automatically. So, you know my view too, that the internet was the best thing to ever happen to the record industry. Yeah. They weren't profitable. This could have made them profitable. They just needed to move music from being a product to being a service. Yeah. But instead, the industry that brought us Elvis and the Beatles is suing children, hated by its customers, and it's collapsing. Yeah. So anyway,
I think we're going to see a rebirth. We're already starting to see a rebirth of the music industry. We're seeing things like Spotify. Have you been on Spotify yet?
No.
There's in Europe, they're getting 90,000 downloads a day, and it's a subscription music service. Yeah. It lets you listen to anything. Type in Bon Jovi, and all the Bon Jovi in the world comes up on your screen.
Yes, so it's music as a service.
Yeah.
Is it streaming, or are you downloading it?
Yeah, streaming.
Okay, well that's the thing. That's the model. I've been, writing about this for a long time, that no one will ever steal music. Why would you take possession of the song if you can listen to any music at any time on any device? So anyway, but the bottom line on this whole thing is that this stereotype of young people is not true. They're the smartest, not the dumbest generation. IQ's up, SAT scores all-time high, graduates all-time high. There is a problem. The top 2/3 are doing great. The bottom third is dropping out of school. But to blame the internet, that's sort of like blaming the library for ignorance, basically. I mean, this is not helpful. Kids don't give a damn. Well, hello, they're volunteering in high school and university more than ever before. And civic activities become political activity. They just elected their first president. So, I mean, this is basic fear. We fear what we don't understand. And it's an unfortunate thing because, wow, what a great thing to be able to learn from young people. Short term, there's a coming generational clash in a lot of our institutions. There's a generational firewall that's emerging within corporations now. These kids come in, they're bright-eyed, they're bushy-tailed. In their culture is the new culture of work. At their fingertips, they have better tools than exist in the biggest corporations. And what do? We stick them in a cubicle, we try and supervise them, treat them like Dilbert, and then we ban their tools, banning Facebook. Well, my view is that the social network and these new collaborative tools are becoming the new operating system for a business. Yeah. So what do? We ban it. Now, that doesn't mean you should have Facebook. There are alternatives to Facebook for the actual corporate social network.
You were late for the interview, and I was using Facebook to try to find you. Because I know already, my generation, I know that the Rolodex in Facebook is the best out there. It's always up to date. If you get a new cell phone tomorrow, you go there first and change the number there. Yeah. And if I have a business card from you, it's out of date by the time I walk out the door, because you go down to AT&T and buy a new whiz-bang phone, put a new number on it, and I don't have your number anymore.
Well, but you can get that Rolodex without, and move all that through Facebook Connect into an industrial strength social network. And that's what, full disclosure here, take off my Dawn author hat, the think tank that I chair is connected to a software as a services company that called Engineera that's built a collaborative platform. So the first thing I did is they said, do you want your Facebook profile moved over? And I just hit one button and that was done. I was talking to this one, it's a CIO of a state where the governor had banned Facebook. And I said, why do you do that? And he says, well, he felt that young people were wasting their time. I said, well, if young people are wasting their time, is that a technology problem? You get rid of that by banning technology? You know, or does that have something to do with performance management, workflow, and job design, and so on? I said, what was the effect of banning Facebook? He says, well, everybody went to MySpace. You know, another youngster, this is in the book, I said, what was the effect of banning Facebook in your, it was a government agency. He said it was the single most demoralizing thing management has ever done. It said to us, we don't get collaboration, we don't understand your generation, and we don't trust you. You know, institution after institution, we do the opposite. Kids don't want to come to the lectures, so we write articles about how kids are lazy, as opposed to changing the model of pedagogy. In the home, you know, we're worried about porn and inappropriate content, as we should be. So what do? Rather than talking to our kids about values, which is what you need to do, we put the family computer in an open area where we can spy on them, try and put blocking software in your 15-year-old, you know,
I gave it up a long time.
Yeah.
My son went to a porn site when he was 7, when I took him to the FCC, he argued very effectively against porn censorship. He told Jonathan Alstein, the FCC commissioner, he said, if you try to block it or ban it, all you do is make it more interesting.
Yeah.
So,
well, case closed.
Yeah.
You know, we do the opposite of what we should do.
Yeah. It's been such a great conversation.
Great.
Thanks for being part of the opening of Building 43. And
well, good luck with it.
Thanks.
I hope I can help in any way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay.